An unexpected announcement crosses all news networks. Ceasefire between Israel and Iran, personally promoted by Donald Trump, who returns to the center of international diplomacy as if he had never left. But the question that hangs in the air, like a cloud of smoke on a recent battlefield, is simple and direct. Who won this war? To understand the weight of this question, we need to go back in time, to June 13th, a date that marked the point of non-refinement in this silent conflict that boiled for decades, but finally exploded open and brutally. That morning, Israel launched a lightning operation of surgical precision, a devastating attack based on advanced intelligence and cutting-edge technology. The target? The heart of Iranian military command. In a matter of minutes, senior Iranian state officials, including intelligence, air force, and army leaders, were eliminated. An attack that was not just structures, but beheaded the Iran's command chain. Something no country had dared to do in decades. The world watched in shock. And Iran, wounded in the pride and backbone of their military power, was not long before reacting. In less than 48 hours, Iran launched a massive and unpublished response. About 500 ballistic missiles were fired towards several Israeli cities. It was a large-scale, carefully coordinated bombing with the clear goal of having a psychological and physical impact. Although the Israeli defense system, known as an Iron Dome, intercepted most projectiles, some missiles managed to break the defenses and reach Tel Aviv and Haifa, causing destruction of civil infrastructure, urban chaos, and civil deaths. The conflict now reached a scale that threatened all the stability of the Middle East. And that's when the United States decided to intervene directly. The U.S. president authorized the use of B-2 Spirit bombers, stealth aircraft capable of crossing the Iranian skies without being detected. The targets were clear: the underground nuclear facilities of Iran. In particular, the Fordow complex, considered one of the most protected facilities of the Iranian nuclear program, was hit by 12 GBU-57 pumps, known as bunker busters, designed to destroy structures to tens of meters deep. The attack was a message. The U.S. not only supported Israel, but were willing to use their full strength to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear power. But curiously, the Iranian response to American attacks was almost symbolic. In a more political than military gesture, Iran launched missiles towards the American base of Al-Dhafra in the United Arab Emirates. However, what caught the eye was the fact that Iran warned the U.S. in advance about the attack. It was as if to say, "We react, but we don't want to climb more than that." This gesture revealed a lot. It showed that despite the aggressive tone and flammable rhetoric, Iran did not want to directly face the United States. Its main objective was to maintain the narrative of resistance alive, not to start an endless war. And then, on June 23rd, the world again watches an unexpected diplomatic movement. A ceasefire is announced, mediated by Donald Trump with his characteristic theatrical style as if it were the century's peacemaker. But the question we raised at first remains unanswered. What does this ceasefire really mean? Who won? Who lost? Or did everyone lose in any way? These are the questions that we will explore in depth from now on. And believe me, the answers are much more complex and revealing what they seem. With the ceasefire in force, international analysts began to do what they know best: to evaluate the damage, to measure the gains, and to try to answer the question that still echoed in headlines and on social networks. Who came out in this conflict? Let's start with Iran. From the point of view of the Iranian regime, surviving a coordinated attack from Israel and the United States is, by itself, considered a victory. This is the logic of the resistance that Tehran has built over the last decades. Until the regime falls, as long as there is a minimal capacity for retaliation, and as long as it can affirm its sovereignty, the struggle continues, and continuing to fight is to win. In state propaganda, survival is transformed into heroism. Images of cities affected by Israeli missiles and ruins are used not as a symbol of defeat but as a proof of resistance. Destruction is shaped as a sacrifice in the name of homeland and faith. But the real damage is immense. The casualties in military leadership are practically irreparable. It will take years, perhaps decades, to rebuild Iran's command apparatus, especially in the areas of intelligence and air defense. Not to mention the almost total collapse of nuclear structures, accurately hit by American weapons projected precisely to prevent the continuity of secret uranium enrichment programs. Even more serious, Iran has lost much of its dissuasive ability. Before, the threat that Iranian missiles could reach Tel Aviv or U.S. bases to maintain a certain balance in the region's strategic game. But now the world has seen that Iran can be hit, and in full force, unable to react proportionally. It only managed to launch warned missiles against an American base without causing victims without real damage. A more symbolic than effective action. For many, this was the moment when the myth of Iranian invulnerability was broken. On the other hand, we have Israel, who, although he faced harsh consequences with Iranian bombing, came out of the conflict with a widely positive strategic balance. Firstly, he eliminated Iran's key military leaders, weakening the country's war machine. Second, it accurately destroyed the Iranian air defenses, paving the way for future operations if necessary. And above all, it has postponed in decades the nuclear advance of Iran, one of Israel's main strategic goals for over 20 years. Israel showed the world once again its technological and intelligence capacity. It has shown that it can act alone or with American support, quickly, precision, and impact. It is true that Tel Aviv and Haifa suffered destruction. Civilians died and the country has entered the maximum alert for days. But for Israeli internal narrative and for military calculation, the cost was high, but the return was higher. And then we arrived at the third actor of this equation, the United States. U.S. entry into the conflict was not just a reaction in defense of Israel. It was also a global demonstration of military strength. B-2 stealthy bombers crossed hostile skies, crossed the Persian Gulf, and reached deeply buried in the Iranian soil with almost surgical accuracy. For the world, and for opponents such as Russia, China, and North Korea, the message was clear. The U.S. is still the only superpower capable of reaching any point on the planet with conventional weapons of total destruction, without warning, without irreversible effects. In addition, the attack on Iranian nuclear facilities reinforces the American position that it will not accept the proliferation of nuclear weapons in the Middle East, something that is internally used as a political argument and externally as a strategic dissuasion. But we need to look beyond the surface. American participation, although effective and powerful, did not solve the background problem. Iran will not become a pro-chief country. Hate to the great Satan, as the U.S. calls, is still alive and probably more inflamed after the attacks. What the U.S. achieved was to postpone a problem, not solving it. It's like pushing a time bomb forward, waiting for the next generation to bring with it. However, in this chess game where the pieces are human lives and houses are whole countries, postponing an explosion is already considered a genius play. With that, we return to the initial question. Who won? The answer requires a deeper analysis, which we will see now. When we look at the surface, it seems that all sides can somehow claim some kind of victory. Iran survived. Israel has achieved its goals. The United States reinforced its position as a military power. But in the field of geopolitical reality, appearances often hide the truth. Let's start with Iran. The regime's advertising machine was quick to paint resistance as Victoria. Launched missiles, guaranteed survival, a population united against external enemies. But when inflamed speeches dissipate, what is left is a country with dismantled military infrastructure, destroyed nuclear centers, dead leaders, and, most importantly, reinforced international isolation. The Iranian nuclear program, which represented years of investment, technology, and ambition, was retreated in at least a decade. The missiles released were the last cry of an army that had no more letters in the sleeve. And even this scream came with an polite request so that no one listened very loudly. The so dreaded Iranian air defense sold to the world as impenetrable has been decimated in days. Today, Iran is more vulnerable than ever, at the mercy of future attacks with no proportional response capacity. There is no way to call this victory, except in the propaganda theater. And Israel? It was undoubtedly the great strategic winner of this conflict. In a matter of days, he was able to do what decades of diplomacy and sanctions failed to: interrupt Iran's nuclear advance without having to involve troops on ground, without dragging the war for months, and without depending exclusively on Washington. With high-level intelligence, state-of-the-art drones and surgical attacks, Israel eliminated the Iranian military elite, permanently destabilized its command structure, and consolidated a regional military superiority that can now no longer be ignored. Of course, there were losses. Civilians died, cities have been hit, and the human cost will always be tragic. But from a military and geostrategic point of view, Israel has achieved all its goals and still came out as the force that dictates the rules in the region. For the United States, the balance is also positive, although less direct. The US government reaffirmed its global military authority, showed allies that it still fulfills its promises, and, most importantly, reaffirmed to the world that it will not accept the presence of a nuclearized Iran. But it also made it clear another point. It does not intend to wrap long and costly wars on foreign soil. The 2025 war showed that the new American military doctrine is based on precision intervention and absolute air power. Mission given, mission accomplished, and then silence. And the international community? He watched everything as always, condemning the attacks, asking for moderation, but without interfering. The ceasefire promoted by Trump was more media than diplomatic. In practice, fire only ceased because the goals of Israel and the US were achieved, and Iran could no longer react. In the end, it was not a ceasefire for balance. It was a ceasefire for exhaustion. The war between Israel and Iran was not a conventional war. It was a demonstration of strength, strategy, and technology. And when we look at the real results without ideological filters, the conclusion is clear. Iran was defeated military and technologically. Israel has been strengthened and with its national security guaranteed for another decade. The United States reinforced its image of untouchable power. And yet, there is a shadow that hangs over it all. Because as much as Iran has lost, it was not destroyed. It still has territory, ideology, allies in the region, and willingness to retaliate. And as long as this desire live, war will never be completely closed, it just changes shape. The ceasefire of June 23rd will be remembered as the end of a step. But the power game in the Middle East does not end. It only comes in silent mode, waiting for the next spark. And now, I want to know about you. Who do you think really won this war? Did Iran resist or be defeated? Did Israel exceed the boundaries or defended its existence? Did the United States protect peace or just postpone the next war? Leave your opinion in the comments. What you say here can become the theme of the next video.